This episode is brought to you by North Texas Honda Dealers. North Texas Honda Dealers, they're here to help.
He has time, launches it to the end zone. Touchdown! Terrence Williams!
The throw goes to the right side for Crabtree. It's caught. He he's the hard down. Red Raider.
Pussy up the 10. Pussy up the right sideline.
He's got to go. He's tackled. Sam Houston wins it. The Bearcats capture their first FCS championship.
Hello, welcome to the Republic of Football. I'm your host, Ishmael Johnson, the college editor here at Dave Campbell's Texas Football, alongside Carter Yates. What's up, man?
How was your Halloween last night?
It was pretty good. I saw me and my girlfriend went to go see Psycho at the Angelica in Dallas.
Psycho? Is that a new movie or an older movie?
The classic Psycho? Alfred Hitchcock?
Oh, no.
The original Psycho. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How was that?
It's fantastic. Second time seeing it in the theater. It really still does hold up. It's fantastic. So yeah, we saw that, and that was basically it. Went to grab a drink afterward, but that was mostly it. And I like that the Angelica does that every year. They have like Hitchtober, where they show like all of Hitchcock's movies, like Vertigo and all that stuff. So it was pretty sick.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. What about you?
Got a big bag of candy and then had about 7 trick-or-treaters show up all night.
Okay. So you just had a big bag of candy.
So I just had a huge bag of candy afterwards. Like, look, the kids let me down this year. Like, someone has to eat all this. It's going to go bad.
Are you not a candy person?
No, I am a candy person. I like Starburst and Skittles, although Skittles are getting nerfed now because of Red Dye 3 being taken out, apparently, which is like...
Red Dye 3? What's that?
California's taking out Red Dye 3 of Skittles.
Interesting.
Why?
Apparently it's like super bad for you.
Oh.
But it's so tasty.
No, my favorite's the new green one. Because they changed it from like...
ones?
Yeah, so the green one is
it used
different.
to be like
We
strawberry,
disagree so
right,
hard
or
on
something?
this.
No. Wait, huh?
We disagree so hard on
No,
this.
the green one now is like apple or something, and
Yeah.
it's much better than whatever it was
It's
before.
green apple. It was
Green
lime.
apple.
It's
Lime!
no longer lime?
No, it's green
Yeah,
apple.
it's been green apple
Lime
for like
is
5
nasty.
years.
I didn't really. I mean, I haven't
No.
had Skittles that much in the past 5 years, but I take lime flavor.
Yeah, the lime flavor was
What?
way better.
Yeah.
Y'all are crazy.
Lime in general is better than green apple flavor.
Okay, whatever.
Anyway,
Incorrect.
What'd you do, Mallory, for Halloween?
I had a fun Halloween. So Pickle and I got home early last night.
Yep.
And we made a little potion concoction for drinks.
Nice.
And then it was nice and warm. We put some cinnamon in there. Yeah, it was a cute little wine drink.
Sweet.
And then we set up chairs on our front porch, and we got our bowl full of candy, and we sat it next to us, got our blankets, and we just sat there and waited for trick-or-treaters to come up to us.
Nice.
With
So-
your witch's brew.
With our witch's
with
brew.
witch's
Yeah, and we
brew.
had some Halloween music going on, so it was nice. I looked at her at one point, and I was like, are we, like, forcing these kids to come up to us because we're sitting outside, like just staring at them until they come up to us?
well, that
But
was
it
better.
was fun.
That was better than what I was doing because I was like looking outside my window and
That's creepy.
No, it,
That's a little weird.
it was a little creepy, but
I can imagine you
That's
just
a little weird.
like you just staring out the window
gonna lie.
trying to get kids to come in.
I'm the third house on the street. The first
Okay.
2 houses, the kids would come down. They would knock on the first door. No one was
Okay.
home. Knock on the second door. No one's home. And I'm sitting out the window like, just try one more door. I'm here with the candy. But, you know, they have no like attention span, no patience. They're like immediately onto the next street.
I get that, but I don't know.
Just sitting there like, please,
Yeah.
please come
Please,
back.
you could have 2 pieces of candy
Right.
instead of 1 if you come.
That's great. I left the movie and I checked the score of the Rangers game and I was very happy.
Oh my, yeah,
I almost
that was
went back to the
insane.
theater because like they gave up like 5 runs once I started
Oh, my
watching, and I was like,
gosh.
what's another movie I can go watch? Like
Yeah,
right
I know.
now.
Get my mind off of it.
So yeah, go Rangers. Hopefully take care of business tonight. Anyway, so we'll call Mike Craven later because we're going to talk UTSA UNT, of course, and talk about that rivalry. A little bit of housekeeping. Carter, you have a new piece out now on Sonny Dykes' return to Lubbock. Of course, TCU's playing Texas Tech, and so definitely go check that out. We'll talk more about that game in a bit. With some headlines though, because we do have some. Let's start off with the big news. There was some news that Mallory, I didn't tell you about that. Just kind of dropped like an hour ago. Not a major news, but just kind of a tidbit. Big 12 released their futures schedule for next. So we can kind of just touch on that later. But the big news, of course, was last night, Texas making their debut in the – I don't say debut in the college football rankings because they've been ranked before, but debut in the kind of teams to watch rankings, officially coming in at number 7 yesterday during the college football playoffs. So, yeah, they were the only Texas team to make it, of course, because nobody else is ranked or kind of really in the picture so far. But, yeah, I don't know. What were your guys' thoughts? Too high, too low, about what you expected?
I thought it was just right.
Just right?
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, like, look, there's 5 undefeated teams right now, and they're all Power 5 teams. So, like,
Right.
all those teams have to go ahead of Texas. And then Oregon at 7-1, like, might be
Well,
playing.
Air Force is up there. But they're undefeated, but they're not up there. Sorry. I meant to rephrase
But
that.
are they Power
They
5?
also no.
No, you said there were 5 undefeated teams, and they're all Power 5.
Yeah, no.
Air Force is undefeated.
Air Force is
Okay.
the only one. That's
So there are
not-
6.
Yeah.
5 of them are Power
My
5.
bad.
Yeah.
Yes, my bad. Arizona Air Force is undefeated, but they are not in the top 5 of the
Right.
country.
Right.
Oregon at 7-1 is probably playing the best ball out
Sure.
of all these teams right now. So I definitely think even
You think better than Washington?
yeah, Washington's been shaky
Yeah, Washington. I mean, they lost to Washington, but Washington hasn't looked great the past 2 weeks.
since that
Arizona
loss to
State.
Washington.
Yeah. Arizona State.
Oregon
kinda.
has been much better. Washington's been really shaky since that loss.
And they
Ooh.
looked really shaky against
Yeah.
Stanford last week too.
Yeah, that's true. I did forget about that.
So, like, I think that's exactly where Texas should be. The thing that, like, is worrying for Texas fans now is, like, Ohio State and Michigan play, obviously. They're probably going to be one loss. That's going to give one of those teams one loss
Yeah,
because
that's
they
gonna-
should be undefeated going into that game, both of them.
Right.
Where's another team that's going to falter? Maybe Washington. Like, Texas has to win out. And if they have one loss, they're completely done. And even if they do win out, like, I've always assumed they would get in. But, like, if there's 5 undefeated teams, is Texas on the outside looking in?
Maybe. I'll say yes. There are 5 undefeated teams. Texas is probably on the outside looking in. I will say, so it does kind of play. Sometimes the college football playoff likes to just like knowing things will play out. They'll rank them a certain way. So like you mentioned with Ohio State and Michigan, like they'll play each other, right? So one of those teams will win out, and one of those teams will be the 6th or 7th, right after the loss, and then they have a Big Ten title shot against most likely Iowa, and they'll just wreck them. Usually, it'll be the worst game ever, but they'll just beat them. And so theoretically, okay, there's your Big Ten. Georgia, barring anything happening, you can kind of pencil them in. It does get a little fishy when you get to Florida State because I don't know, the ACC does not look that tough, and they're rolling through it. Right, Duke was probably their best matchup, and Riley Leonard was hurt, so like that really wasn't a great matchup. Maybe Miami. I know they're unranked right now, but like they do have the talent to kind of do
And they
something.
figured out they
Yeah.
can kneel now.
Right, yeah, they
Which
figured out they
really
can kneel the
helps.
ball whenever they're winning. And then, of course, they got to play in the ACC title game, but again, conference doesn't look that great. So, yeah, I mean, there is a world where, yeah, it could potentially happen. And, of course, we're assuming that Texas takes care of business and beats potentially Oklahoma in a rematch. This weekend, of course, we'll get to in a bit.
It's a massive assumption.
It's-
Right.
too,
No, that's
on our
fair.
part.
It's a
That's fair. But it's
gauntlet
like we don't
left,
know, you know, all of a sudden, this week, honestly, not only Texas, Kansas State, but Bedlam is this weekend too. And all of a sudden, Oklahoma State looks like a team that could also be playing in AT&T potentially with Ollie Gordon and Alan Bowman there. So, again, we don't know who Texas is going to play because it's not a guarantee, especially after last week, that Oklahoma is going to play, go back to the Big 12, go back to or represent in the Big 12 championship. So, yeah, I mean, there is a scenario, right? But I do think still right now, I still think Washington and Oregon will, I mean, they'll duke it out probably again in the Pac-12 championship. Is that still played on a neutral site?
I don't know, but the Pac-12 is the conference of cannibalization.
No, it is. It is. This is a team. This is a conference that probably could use a second bid, but just not going to. Just the way the schedule is going to play out, and then of course they're going to play each other again in the championship game. Utah obviously lost Cameron Rising, but they look like a team that should be theoretically in the hunt if they were healthy. But of course they're not, and they've already lost 2 games. So
What about a 2-bid Big Ten?
I mean, see, that's
Top
the thing.
4.
It's like I think the Big Ten this year justifies what they're eventually becoming, which is adding USC, adding UCLA, because it does feel like a team or a conference that probably should have 2 bids, but due to like strength of schedule, just isn't right now. Because like
Yeah.
all the 3, I say 3, even though I can acknowledge that Iowa's defense is really good. They're not in the conversation. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. Those 3 are their best teams, but like only one of those teams has played only one of those, there's only been Ohio State versus Penn State. None of those other 3 other matchups have happened. And so when you look at the rest of the conference, it's also like, all right, what, Minnesota, Nebraska, you start,
Minnesota.
yes, Joe Biden. But like now you're looking at a conference where like if this was next year, they would have already played / beaten UCLA. They would have played / beaten USC. So I think they're kind of justifying their expansion in that way, as awkward as it's going to be, with like. Yeah, they have 3 teams with like 1 loss. Or I guess Penn State, they have 1 loss still?
Penn State has
yeah, but only one of them, we know only one of them is getting in because of that.
The Big Ten's been boring this year. Michigan's had a cakewalk.
No, like I said, that's because they haven't played anybody. It's not until late next month or this month that they play.
Like it was like Ohio State versus Penn State was the first marquee game in that conference. It was a total
and it stunk.
clunk.
Yeah, it stunk. Yeah.
Yeah, Big Ten's been boring. What I've always like pictured in the back of my mind happening as we hurtle towards the final championship with all this conference realignment is that Pac-12 has an undefeated team that gets left out.
Yeah.
And like the 5th spot for a 1-loss like Big Ten team.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say
that's a good point.
Let's say Ohio State and Michigan play in that game, and then like Ohio State shocks Michigan, and then they let Michigan in with 1 loss, but Washington's undefeated, and then college football Twitter just explodes. Like that's what I've been waiting on to happen.
Okay, final thing from this.
Yep.
Who are your top 4 right now?
Ooh, right now, I mean,
if you had to project, here
at the end of the year,
in the end of the year,
end of the year, okay.
Yeah, okay. Say you're the committee, right? Everything's been set.
I'm going.
Who are you going with?
I'm going Michigan, Georgia. I think Florida State, Washington. I think Washington. They've looked shaky, but I think they squeak it out.
Yep.
I really do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Ohio State. Then I'm gonna go Georgia. Okay, I'm gonna keep it the same there. Then I'm gonna go Florida State, and then Washington. I think Michigan gets bounced at the end by the end of the year. Not only because they haven't played anybody, but also with everything going around their program right now. I feel like if you lose Connor Stallions, that's a huge loss. Like, we have to talk about that.
Oh my God. Okay.
A big missing presence on the sidelines.
Okay.
But seriously, like all the bad vibes around the program, I think like they're gonna fall out.
I guess. Yeah, but then they lost
the
Jim
best story.
Harbaugh for like 4 weeks, and
but they
kept
played
rolling.
nobody.
But didn't you realize he died for 4 weeks because they had to do like the kneeling on the field and all that for
When they
in
did
tribute
the-
of
JJ
him.
McCarthy, free
they
Harbaugh.
put the fist up because he died for 3 weeks.
Oh,
So.
You realize
God.
he chose to suspend himself too.
Yeah.
I have a lot of things for that fan base.
Anyway, before we let Mallory go unfiltered,
No.
So a couple schedules were announced. I mentioned the SMU one to you before we started recording, Mallory. They announced their ACC home opponent or their schedules, full schedules. But the one that stood out to me was they get Florida State at home next year. That's gonna be fun.
Rocks.
That's gonna be really cool. So their home games next year are Florida State.
I love Florida State.
Atlantic Coastal Conference team Cal, and then Boston College and Pitt are their home games. And then they get Virginia, Louisville, Duke, and then Atlantic Coastal team Stanford on the road. So that's Florida State, really interesting. I'm interested in the Cal game because it's going to be the Who Hates Sonny Dykes More Bowl.
Yeah.
versus SMU and Cal when he goes.
That's good.
When they, I feel like he should do like ceremonial coin toss and just get booed off the stadium. He's gonna be like, "Well, I'm going back to Fort Worth." But before we started recording, the Big 12 also announced theirs really quick. So we don't have to go through all of these. I'm just gonna run through them and we can give quick thoughts. I'm gonna go through home schedules, by the way, just home. Houston home, they host Utah, Baylor, Kansas State, Iowa State. TCU, they host Arizona, Texas Tech, Houston, Oklahoma State, and UCF. Texas Tech hosts Arizona State, Colorado, Baylor, Cincinnati, West Virginia, and then Baylor hosts BYU, TCU, Oklahoma State, and Kansas. I believe every Texas school – no, okay, so TCU and Houston avoid Colorado next year, and then Tech avoids Utah. Tech and Baylor avoid Utah. So that's what it looks like at least next year.
The biggest things I saw is like the protected rivalries.
Yes, that was Baylor. I have that on my phone. Baylor and TCU are the only in-state one protected.
That kind of hurts because us not having the Butt Bowl as a protected rivalry
Stinks. No pun intended.
Really stinks. I do like TCU and Baylor playing each other. That's great. Like that needs to be protected.
Yes.
Also, the Holy War with BYU Utah.
Yes, needs to be protected.
That was a good one. But I would have liked to see a little more protected rivalries among Texas teams.
Yes.
I think they prioritized home and homes, which I understand. But look, I mean, you can't protect all these rivalries, but in terms of us in our brand,
I will say did you see the ACC's protected rivalries?
No,
they just made things up.
Like
the SMU and Cal. SMU's Cal and
like
Cal is a protected one. It's like, what? It's just like, yeah, it is a hodgepodge, but it's just like the Big 12 could have just said, yeah, we're just making this up. And like TCU and Tech, sure, you're just protected. They could have just said something because the ACC's like, let's see, Cal SMU, Stanford SMU. Who could forget the legendary matchup? Like they have the real ones like Cal Stanford and all Miami Florida State, but then it's like, I don't know. Do you know North Carolina and Virginia were rivals?
No, I could see it.
I could see it, but it's like I didn't know. But it's like, is that a protected right? So things like that. The ACC was like, screw it, you're just a rivalry now. Like Cal and Stanford, or not Cal and Stanford, SMU and Cal, you're rich schools, fine, you're a rivalry now. Like it's just like you could do that. I don't know. I feel like the Big 12 definitely should have done more with that. But anyway. If you want to go check out, everybody's putting out their matrices now for the next couple of years, so you can go ahead and do that. Okay, really quick before we get to our previews. Mallory, do we have the power poll?
Yep, we do.
All right, so we mentioned that Texas is the only ranked team in the college football playoff, which means, of course, they are the only team. They're the team at the top of the college power poll. Staying the same, they will have a big chance to. I don't want to say, I don't know. If they win or lose this week, I feel like they should be kind of safe, in my opinion. Just because, either they win and keep they're 7-1, and then SMU at number 2 is 6-2. And it's like if they lose to Kansas State, barring getting embarrassed, I feel like you can't really ping them for that.
No, unless Texas goes out there and gets 50 burgered.
I was about to say.
Has a Houston versus Kansas State performance. Yes, then maybe. But SMU, if they beat Rice, that's not enough to jump them to number 1.
So Texas, SMU, Texas A&M, UTSA, Texas State, TCU, Rice, Tech, Houston, Baylor, North Texas, UTEP, and Sam Houston. So that is our power poll. We kind of already. I feel like the bottom is set. Sorry, SMU. Sam Houston.
Locked in.
0-8 versus the next teams are 3 wins. So.
12 and 13 or UTEP, Sam Houston are locked in, but Houston, Baylor, North Texas, there could be some movement here.
Oh, there's definitely gonna be some movement there. So yeah, there's a quick rundown of the power poll again. Remember, Mike Craven updates these every Sunday after the college football week, or Monday, I should say. And yeah, we'll have another clean slate. Big slate, I should say, this weekend with Carter. You will be in Austin for the big game for that one.
The big game.
Texas versus Kansas State. And the man on the line now will be in Denton for UTSA, North Texas. Let's get into our games of the week. Mallory, let's start off with the one that we're calling in Mike Craven for.
All right. Craven, you are going to be at UTSA in North Texas this Saturday, kickoff at 2 p.m. You can watch it on ESPN+. UTSA coming in as 7.5-point favorites. The over-under is 71.5. Craven, it's the Hartley and Craven Bowl this week, and how you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah, it has been 10 plus seasons since UTSA won in Denton. So it's probably time for they're due. That's how I'm looking at it.
They sure are.
I was listening to the press conference from Jeff Traylor this week because, of course, a lot of people were asking him about just the history of the programs and the last time you guys were here. I think it was the 2021 season where they were unbeaten, and of course they got rolled in the weather. He mentioned the running backs in particular. He was like, the head coach has changed, but we still can't tackle the guys who they have. We couldn't tackle the guys they have toting the rock, basically, is what he said. Is it basically going to be down to that? A lot of the talk has been about Chandler Rogers and the offense for good reason, but I don't know if you're UNT or if I'm UNT, I look at that and say, they haven't been able to tackle these guys in 2 years. So why would we give it to anybody but these running backs in the backfield?
Yeah, for sure. I do think those are their most talented players. Although Chandler Rogers, the last 6 weeks, has been incredible since he's been inserted into the starting lineup. They've scored points on everybody, at least in one half of every single game this last few ones. And so, it does feel like both offenses are going to score points. This thing's not going to be a low-scoring game. I'd imagine it gets into the 30s, maybe even in the 40s down there late. And so it's going to come down to turnovers, which quarterback makes a mistake or two. And honestly, lately Rodgers has been the guy who has. I think he only has one interception on the season. So to me, this comes down to quarterback play and which guy makes plays and which guy maybe makes a mistake or two.
So, Craven, I really, really want to take the over on this game, very badly, but I've heard there's going to be some bad weather in Denton. Jeff Traylor said he's about to suspend his training staff if they give him any more bad news on the injury front. Does that cause you any concern for the amount of points we're going to get on Saturday?
Not really. I think UTSA has allowed a lot of points, even though they've been outscoring opponents so much it hadn't really mattered. But they've allowed a lot of points. North Texas, we've talked about all year with their defensive struggles. Both of these teams can run the football, so even if it is a little windy and the weather's wacky, I think they can score points. They scored points in that 2021 game up in Denton that didn't have great weather that Ish referenced earlier. And so, yeah, to me, the over's pretty high, so I may not take it just because of how high it is, but I'd be very shocked if this thing isn't, both teams in at least the 30s by the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Looking at their numbers right now, I mentioned the backfield. Ayo Adehi's at 7.5 yards a carry. Oscar Adaway's at almost 5.5, and then Isaiah Johnson's at almost 6.5 yards a carry. So, of course, Adehi's their workhorse back. But you mentioned Chandler Rogers, only one pick on the year, 65% completion. I think the thing that has impressed me most about him is unless, and this is kind of where UTSA is going to have to probably get to him, is the pass rush. Unless the pocket collapses on him and the pass rush gets to him, he gets the ball out, right? There's never a situation in where, I don't know, it's partially Eric Moore's system where it looks like there's always somebody open for him to go to, but it looks like he's always making a decision that's just like, oh, that's just the right play. It feels like every single time. And you mentioned how he doesn't make mistakes. What have you seen just in general from from week 2? Even when he came in against Cal and in the garbage time against FIU, he does look still different from then.
Yeah, it's to your point, I think he's making decisions faster. He's trusting the reads and what he's seeing on Wednesday and Thursday on Saturday. And that takes some time in a new offense, right? You can see it on Thursday at practice. You can see it Friday on film, but then on Saturday when the bullets are flying, sometimes you can start second-guessing yourself. The purpose of the air raid offense and what Eric Morris is running is to make it easy on the quarterback, to not make it overly complicated. Mike Leach famously had a 6x8 index card of plays because he didn't think it was all that complicated. And so it is see space, throw to space, catch ball, and then run. That is what they're doing offensively, and that fits what Chandler does well. And so I don't see it stop. I think the one thing about the North Texas offense that you see, and this is probably true across a lot of these style of offenses, is it's that first play or two of a series.
Yeah.
If North Texas goes forward early on and gets a first down, on first down or second down, then it's off to the races. They're down the field. They're scoring points. You've got to win that first down, that second down, try to get them 3 and out of rhythm, because once they're in rhythm, it is going. And I think that's why we've seen North Texas struggle for a quarter or two and then explode for a quarter or two offensively.
Graven, how would you grade so far Eric Moore's first season in North Texas? Because the first 2 games, it looked like they were going to go over. And to his credit, I saw, he switches the quarterback out. They start doing more 4-down lineman sets, and they've been pretty competitive over this back half of the season, these last 6 games, but still just not finding those ways to win. What do you think about the job Eric Morris has done so far this year?
I think it's been good, especially this last month. You're starting to see an identity. And for me, that's what the first year is about. I kind of throw away the record. You're probably going to take a step back under a new coach when you've gone to bowl games for 5 out of 6 years. You were in the conference championship game last year. North Texas didn't get rid of Seth Luttrell and bring in Eric Morris to be better in 2023. They wanted to be better in 2024 and beyond. And part of that is just starting to build a team that looks like the one you want to, and you can be an observer from the outside and go, okay, those are the things he's trying to get to. And I feel what Morris is doing on offense, we all expected, right? At Incarnate Word, at Washington State, they're going to put up points. I think defensively and on the offensive line, they're starting to get a little bit tougher. They're starting to play well in tight spots. They're becoming more situationally aware. And anybody who watched him at Incarnate Word knows that first year you kind of throw away. It's a building block year, and then he turned that program around, and North Texas was in much better shape than that one. And so I think he's doing well, and I think it's going to be a program that, with the resources that they have, should compete at the G5 level with everybody else in that conference after SMU's gone.
Lastly, of course, we got to ask you about just in the recent run from UTSA, a team that was battered to start the year. Of course, you talked about Frank Harris's injuries and his offseason. Now, I mean, he's been seemingly looking like as close as to what we've seen to the old Frank Harris. I believe last week he had almost 400 yards passing. They really haven't missed recently. They haven't really missed guys like Zachary Franklin, who of course transferred, JT Clark, who's been hurt. What have you? I don't know. Is this the team that can compete for the AAC now that they look healthy? Frank looks healthy and back to it, and we're seeing guys in the receiving core not named Josh Cephas kind of step up as well.
I believe so. They're getting a little bit more balanced. It feels like the running game's coming along, and I'm sure that has to do with offensive line health and just health of the running back position in general. And so, UTSA has never been all that deep. They've always been a few injuries away from, and that's kind of true at the G5 level, right? You're a couple key injuries away from going from 10 wins to maybe 7 wins. And I think I'm kind of a skeptic Roadrunner fan a lot of times as an alum. They hadn't played anybody the last month. Like, they should be beating Temple. They should be beating UAB. They should be beating FAU without Casey Thompson that way, East Carolina. And so North Texas has been tested. They've played Memphis. They've played Tulane. They've played them to close games. They've been in close games. They've stormed back from deficits. And so, for UTSA, this is probably going to be the first time that they're truly challenged, since the non-conference. And, they hadn't been in a close game in a while. So if it gets that way, I think it does, like I said at the very beginning, I think it comes down to which quarterback, maybe makes a mistake or two, and that's going to be the only difference that needs to be had.
All right, man, what's your pick?
I got UTSA in a pretty close one. I think it's going to be about 41-38, last ball, and that's what it was in the regular season last year. I think it's going to be one of those kind of, shootouts between two teams and two really good rivals.
Mallory.
I think I got to go with Craven on this one.
I
do have to say, though, the last time that UTSA traveled to play North Texas, the weather was bad, and guess who won?
Yeah.
North Texas knocked off a top 25 team at home. So.
Yeah. All right.
But I don't think that's going to happen this time.
I do. I put in my 4-1-1 last week. I think North Texas is going to beat one of these good teams, and it would not shock me if it's UTSA. This is absolutely a live game on Saturday. The 7.5 feels like too many points.
Yeah.
All right, Craven. Safe travels up, man. We'll see you this weekend.
Later, guys.
Thanks,
All
Craven.
righty. All right, so we have Mallory and Craven's pick. I think I'm going to join, though. I think I'm also picking UTSA.
If North Texas doesn't win this game, the season's kind of over. Like
In terms of a bowl.
In terms of a bowl.
Yeah.
In terms of a bowl, like if you want to make a bowl game, you kind of have to win this game because I just don't see them beating SMU.
Right.
No,
So it's
I
like
don't
this
either.
is your last chance to kind of
Right.
like scrounge the 6 wins.
Yeah.
Right. I know. I agree with that.
Yeah, because I think what are they at 3 right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they do need to steal. Yeah, I mean, yeah, basically. So, are you saying North Texas?
Yeah. I'll go North Texas. I'll ride
Okay.
North Texas.
Okay.
Okay.
I will have this. I will have this one up. No matter what I'm doing, what other games I'm watching, I'm having this one up. So this is
totally.
gonna be fun.
I'll probably be there.
Yeah.
So
Depending on the weather.
depending on the weather, that's always a factor.
All right, let's go.
All right, our actually, probably our top matchup of the week. Texas hosting Kansas State this Saturday,
Yeah.
November 4th at 11 a.m. You can watch it on Fox. Texas coming in as 4-point favorites. The over-under is 50.5.
All right,
You
Carter.
described this as an anxiety bowl, but there are different levels to anxiety. So explain this type of anxiety bowl in your definition.
Well, yeah, I misuse the term anxiety bowl. Anxiety bowl is where either coach is going to get fired if they lose. What we kind of talked about on Sunday was like, I put the Mr. Incredibles meme up, and it's like, this is like first world anxiety where it's like, oh, if we lose this game, we're not going to get to play in Jerry World and for the
Right.
conference championship. And then like the next game is maybe Texas Tech TCU where it's like, oh, we really took a step back.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. And then
it's
Baylor, Houston,
where it's just like one of these guys might get fired.
yeah, that's the real anxiety.
Yeah.
That is the actual anxiety bowl. So that was a little bit of a mischaracterization on my part. But yeah, I mean, this is every game Texas plays for the rest of the season is a must win if they want to make the college football playoff. And Kansas State is the scariest team left on their schedule.
Yeah.
I think it's scarier Kansas State is than if Texas somehow made the Big 12 championship and played OU again.
Well, because they played OU. They kind of know, what to – I won't say they know what to expect, but, like, there is that familiarity with OU, right? You're probably more comfortable preparing for an OU where you're like, what did we do wrong last time? Like you have a mulligan kind of to say where it's like you were able to do – X didn't work, so let's try Y. Things like there's something to adjust a little bit. Kansas State, you're just like, we're just going to see if we can play them. And then, like, if plan A doesn't work, there's no – you can't make up for that,
Well, it's that also, and then also the fact that Kansas State is peaking right now at the right time.
Yes.
Like, they got all their weird losses out of the way early, and now they've just, like, figured it out.
Yeah, the Oklahoma, which, by the way, both losses now don't look bad. Missouri and Oklahoma State, those are the two losses. All of a sudden, Missouri is probably the most talented skill position team in the SEC right now. And then we've talked about Oklahoma State before we started recording. Secretly, they also still have a chance at the Big 12 championship.
Well, that's just Mike Gundy to a T. Like, just when you want to count him out and, like, everything's over, he just, like, pulls this out.
Pulls it up by the bootstraps. And the bootstraps is named Ollie Gordon. Yep. Rushing for 250 yards, like, every game.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, their two losses are, like, oh, wait, no, that's Kansas State. Never mind. I'm thinking of something else.
I will say Oklahoma State's two losses. South Alabama, who's really good.
South Alabama, okay.
And Iowa State, who's not bad. They're not Big 12 contender, but they're not
Kansas
bad.
State.
So
Kansas State's two losses are very good.
Yes.
Great
Kansas,
losses.
yeah, exactly. So getting back on this game, I mean, oh man, here's the thing. Did you see enough from Malik Murphy last week to be able to say that if they get on the back foot, that he can go in and, probably have to make some, because I'm assuming, right, this is me assuming, Texas may get on the back foot in this game, right, just naturally. I think Kansas State's going to come out and try to punch them in the mouth, again, in the way that they can, which is like sometimes literally just punching them in the mouth by running the ball 70 times. But it wouldn't shock me if Malik Murphy maybe has a couple slow starts like he did. I think any quarterback would. It's not a Malik Murphy thing. But it wouldn't shock me if Texas finds themselves down 7-0, 10-0, 10-3, something like that. And my question is Malik Murphy good enough to then, if he has to press, right?
No, he's not. I don't think he is. Look, I thought he played good versus BYU.
Yeah.
I think he has a bright future ahead of him.
Yep.
He's just not experienced enough.
I'll say this: I don't think anybody but Quinn Ewers on that team is experienced enough to do that.
No, I'm not saying
right. No, I know you weren't. That's why I was making that clear.
Let's
that I understood.
Thank you for that. Let's make that very clear. I don't think Malik, definitely not Arch, is ready to go play against Kansas State. That's why I think Texas can't get behind the 8 ball too much and start pressing much. And another thing is because, like, Malik Murphy, we talked about it, like, he's been injured all the time too. So it's not even like, he doesn't have that game experience. A lot of times he doesn't have the practice experience too, because he's gone through all these lower body injuries right now. I didn't see enough in the BYU game. Texas is really going to have to rely on the rushing attack with Jonathan Brooks and CJ Baxter, but like that's also kind of what Kansas State's strength is.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, running. I think they're good enough to win this relying on Brooks. I think Brooks and Baxter, especially Baxter the past couple weeks, have been really good, and I think
healthy.
They're good enough. Yeah, definitely healthy. But very good in terms of they could win if they have the right game. Right, if they're just able to rely on them, they're good enough to carry this team to a win, and Malik Murphy just kind of guide the boat. But it's going to be, can they do that against this Kansas State defense who they played a good rushing team last week against Houston and didn't allow them to do anything. They played a good rushing team against TCU and didn't allow them to do anything. So
I think it's really going to come down to the Texas defense and if they can force turnovers like they did versus BYU, because Malik Murphy wasn't like playing a picture-perfect game, nor as he should have been.
Right.
And Texas got like 2 interceptions, got a fumble recovery in their special teams touchdown.
Helped him out a bit.
And in the games that Kansas State has lost, it's like Will Howard has freaked out and thrown 3 interceptions, you know. And last week versus Avery Johnson, he's doing like a read option. He just kind of fumbles the ball. And like he's been phenomenal, but that was the first like freshman mistake he made. So they're going to have to make Will Howard, Avery Johnson uncomfortable, force them into some turnovers. And that's how they're going to be able to help out Malik Murphy and help win this game, because if Texas goes down by 2 touchdowns, I don't have confidence that Malik Murphy is just going to be able to carry them back in, wheel and deal around the field. Kansas State's not that type of team that's going to let that happen.
Right. All right. I'm going Kansas State on this one.
I am too.
I'm going to go Kansas State on this one too. It really is a shame that Quinn Ewers is not playing in this game.
No, because I think at the beginning of the year when it looked like Kansas State wasn't Kansas State, I was like, oh yeah, Texas is going to roll, and you're like, okay, it almost doesn't matter how good or bad we think Texas is. It looked like Kansas State was down, and so I wasn't really looking forward to this matchup now. But now that you mention it, now that Kansas State is peaking, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, we're not going to get these teams at their best, which I don't know. It feels like if it wasn't going to happen here, it was going to happen at AT&T. But of course, this one's kind of an elimination game de facto with both of them having one loss. So yeah, it's kind of unfortunate.
It felt like this would have been a game if Quinn Ewers played. Like this is Quinn Ewers' legacy game.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's going to always kind of be a what if right now until he comes back.
Right. I should also mention Bedlam is this weekend as well. Ooh. So that one becomes like we're basically going to have two kind of elimination games for the Big 12 championship. Very potential.
Isn't Oklahoma State ranked now too?
Either they're ranked or they're receiving votes. I didn't see the last 8 people.
I think they're ranked.
The always dangerous receiving votes category.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are not. They are 26th based on votes. They have 77 votes.
Okay. So they're close.
Yeah, they're close. And then I think Iowa State's the only other one-loss team. So this at the end of this weekend, we could just have Iowa State in third. If things just
unbelievable.
Or we will have Iowa State in third if they win. Basically,
their program was actually deader than dead at the beginning of the year, and somehow, some way, Iowa State, just when they have no expectations, they become like the most sneaky team in the country.
Yeah, I know.
All right, Mallory, what's next?
Let's go to tomorrow night. TCU traveling to Lubbock to play Texas Tech at 6 p.m. You can watch it on FS1. Texas Tech coming in as 3-point favorites. The over/under is 59.5.
All right, so this one was a little salty last year. It took I think TCU had to score 21 points in the fourth quarter to pull this one out. Obviously, both teams are hampered. I believe Baron Morton did practice this week.
I think he's going to
play. So that is a big sigh of relief for Tech fans. And yeah, where are you leaning on this one?
I have no idea, honestly.
I want to lean Tech just because now that they have their guy back, but
and it's at home too.
It's at home, but I'm also like, is he 100%? I don't know. He had the bye week, so that helped.
TCU's looked awful though.
They looked really bad when literally anybody just had a small amount of film on Josh Hoover.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But they're coming off a bye week too now. So maybe Josh Hoover made some big strides.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe Josh Hoover made some big strides and just became Max Duggan, I guess.
Yeah.
It just feels like TCU's in this extremely precarious situation right now, where if they dropped a 4-5 after going to the national championship last year, it's almost like is that mentally kind of their point where they realize they're kind of done for the rest of the year. Yeah. I'm not in the locker room. I don't know exactly, but you hear like the Kansas State offensive linemen talking about how they were all quitting and laughing down 30.
Right.
They got absolutely mushroom stamped, by Kansas State. Losing to Texas Tech, which is like a pretty average team right now. It feels like it could be a little bit of a nail in the coffin situation.
A little bit. I also think that Tech would use this as a big opportunity to kind of get back on track. I still don't think this is not the year that Tech wanted, but I think that to me, they could use this win in terms of, let me put it this way. TCU wins this game. They're like, cool. I think overall it's just been kind of a big deflating year for them. Tech wins this game. I think they have the staff and the fan base and the kind of the roster where it's like, they use that to kind of finish out strong. Whatever this year turns out to be for them, I kind of see this more as they know what they're building towards. TCU, it's hard to come from a national championship game to this. Tech knows that it's still kind of an ongoing process. I know the fan base is getting a little bit riled after how the hype was and all that stuff, but I still think Tech can kind of use this game more than TCU in terms of
Tech wins this game. The hype is back up.
I was about to say So I'm going to go with Tech just because I trust the quarterback situation there more, even if it is hobbled Baron Morton. I didn't like what I saw. Granted, he was going against Kansas State, but I didn't like what I saw when literally the first team who had film on Josh Hoover played against him.
Yep. I'm going to go Texas Tech, too. I think they win this game, and then last year, remember, they kind of went on a mini run to end the year. They were 8-5 last year, but they were not all that great mid-season.
Yeah.
They kind of finished really strong.
I will say if TCU wants to win this game, we know Tech's not really good against – I mean, they're, fine against the run, but Amani Bailey needs to touch the ball like 70 times, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Like, it can't be Josh Hoover going into Lubbock and throwing the ball 40 times, in my opinion.
Great running back matchup. We have Amani Bailey and
Taj
Taj
Brooks.
Brooks.
Great running
Yeah.
back matchup of teams that probably don't use their running backs enough.
No, I know. I was gonna say that. All right, final game of the week: Texas A&M playing at number 11 Ole Miss this Saturday at 11 a.m. You can watch it on ESPN. Ole Miss coming in as 3-point favorites.
All right.
The over/under is 54.5. That seems a little low to me. I don't know.
It seems a little low until you realize Texas A&M has scored 15 second-half points in the second half of the last 3 games.
Oof.
Against who? South Carolina.
South Carolina, Alabama, Tennessee.
Okay.
And they also haven't had a TD in the second half the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. I will say, did you guys see the shot that Lane Kiffin took?
Yes.
No.
So he did his
Freaking
weekly.
love Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, he's great. So he did his weekly press conference, and I think this was from the video I saw was from SEC Mike, discussing a top 10 ranking 3 seasons in a row for Ole Miss. He says, to be able to do that, especially when you are going up against a program you would think, referencing A&M. So to be able to do that, especially when you're going up against a program you would think will be ranked in the top 10 with their roster.
Oh.
And then went
I
on to
love
say,
that.
Jimbo said their goal is to be bowl eligible, so we can get in the way of that.
Dude,
So
I love that.
First of all, let me just make it clear. I'm picking Ole
Get in
Miss.
their
this one.
heads. Get in
I'm
their
picking
heads.
Ole Miss in this one because there's nothing more than Lane Kiffin would like to do than to be potentially the reason that A&M doesn't go bowling,
Yes.
even though the bar was set so low and he may not hit it.
Let's just say when Lynn Kiffin kind of takes pot shots at like Nick Saban in Alabama, I'm like, dude, do not poke the bear. When
Yeah.
he takes pot shots at Texas A&M, I'm not like, oh, they're going to be fired up and
Right.
ready to play.
I'm like,
because
keep
of
going.
Yeah.
Keep cooking. Look, Ole Miss, I think, let me put it this way. My thoughts on Ole Miss in general are, I think that I think A&M would love to be what Ole Miss is, and I think that at the same time, Ole Miss fans are kind of mad at what they are because they're very firmly not in the conversation with Alabama, right? I thought they would be this year, but they weren't. That game was
Are
not.
you talking about this year specifically?
I think
or are you
so.
talking about as a program? Because
I think
Ole-
both, because
Ole
it
Miss
always
this
seems
year
like-
is like what Texas A&M has been. I feel like
I don't know because I don't. Well, I mean, at least not the past couple of years.
not
A&M.
the past 2 years.
Yeah,
but
I would
before
think
that,
A&M would
Jimbo.
love. I mean, A&M would love to be number 10. Number
Yeah.
10 in the country. But I think that Ole Miss looks at this team and they look at the SEC and is like, this should be our playoff year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, in my opinion, I think A&M's looking at Ole Miss being like, that should we should be disappointed with the number 10 is what A&M feels, right? And so I think they look at it, Ole Miss and they're like, that should be us, right?
Okay.
Whereas
Yeah,
there's
I
too
agree
many
with that.
quarterbacks over there that aren't playing, right? So it's like they got Jackson Dart, they got Spencer Sanders, and they're like, we like Max Johnson, he's fine, but it's like they got Max Johnson, right? It's like they had Connor Wigman gets hurt and the ceiling goes, kaput. So it's like I look at this Ole Miss team and be like, yeah, A&M kind of wishes they were this right now.
Yeah, I think I think Ole Miss is going to win this game. I mean, A&M's last road win
Yeah.
was at Missouri in
Right.
October 2021. The road issues are big. One nice thing I'll say about A&M though is like Torian York and Edrin Cooper, the linebackers, have been fantastic, and that's a future plug for a story Mike Craven's got coming out about Torian York,
Yeah.
Temple product.
Yep.
What a find for them in the recruiting trail. He
Insane.
was very underrated coming in. He might be one of the best freshman linebackers in the nation. Edrin Cooper, Louis Riddick said it in the game versus South Carolina, was like, Edrin Cooper's the best linebacker in the nation. And at
Yeah.
first I was like, really? Is he? And then the more I watch him,
You're like,
he kind of is.
yeah.
They might have the best linebacker tandem in the country right now.
I will say the one thing going in favor for A&M, Ole Miss has Georgia next week.
Could be like a look ahead
Maybe.
situation.
Maybe. I'm not saying. I think Lane Kiffin, obviously, he's taking pot shots at A&M, so he definitely has A&M on the mind. So it's not going to come from the head coach. But like when you have A&M, when you have Georgia next week, I don't know. Sometimes it could be like A&M, yeah, sure, fine. We'll
I don't
see.
know. Oxford's hard to play in. too.
Oxford is hard to play in, so I'm picking Ole Miss. Don't get me wrong, because mainly I just don't see how this team scores against.
It feels
enough. I
Yeah.
should say.
It just feels like A&M is at this point playing for a bowl game, and if they are just playing for a bowl game, this loss isn't crucial for them.
No, they'll just win next week or the
They'll
week
just
after.
win the next week or the week after. That's the problem when you set the expectation at bowl eligibility.
Right.
All right. Let's go ahead and switch it into the wide zone. Starting off strong with Sam Houston playing at Kennesaw State this Saturday at 12 p.m. You can watch it on ESPN Plus.
All right, so finally, Sam
This
Houston
is
gets
it.
a Saturday.
Yeah, okay,
This is the week.
This is actually
This is
it.
the week.
So here's the thing. Yes, because Kennesaw State is still FCS. I think they're FCS independent because they're jumping up next year. They're also doing the thing Sam did last year, which is just redshirting everybody. This is not an FBS. This is not an FCS roster even. This is like
FCS backup roster.
yes, literally. So they're 2-5. They're not good. Their win came against Tusculum and Lincoln, who does not have a page on ESPN. So
Fake team.
possibly a fake team.
Bishop Sycamore.
Bishop, I was
This is the
about to say
Bishop
that.
Sycamore situation here, with probably less illegal things going on. But so yes, this should be very much be the week. If it doesn't, then it's just not happening at all.
Yeah, if they lost this game, that would be all time sad. And then this also kind of feels like the win where no one's happy either.
Right.
Just like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I'm pretty happy because
I was about to say
then
maybe just
you
getting
avoid
it, just
the
getting
season
it.
shutout.
Yeah, I was about to say just getting it done.
Yeah.
It might be enough. And this isn't a no, but this is going to be a conference team for them next year.
Right.
Right. So it isn't just like you're not beating. No offense you're not beating the D3 team, right? You're not beating a D2 team. This is a team that, a program that you will be seeing next year. So, like, there is something to be said about, like, if they win dominantly, there's something to be said about that, or just getting a win in general.
Here's what I'll say.
So
if I see runs on 3rd and 15 and pooch kicks versus Kennesaw State, I might lose my mind.
What if they're just practicing against them? What if they're up so big and they're just practicing pooch kicks?
Then that's one thing.
That's
but if
fine.
the game is tight, and they're playing not to lose versus Kennesaw State, who's playing all backups, FCS teams,
Yeah.
and they have their brains so wrapped up in this pretzel like that, that's when I'm going to kind of lose my mind a little bit.
Okay. All right.
I don't know, dude. I want to go Sam Houston, but we've been burned. By
I was
the
about to say
past 3
I've
weeks
called them
on
the past
that,
2 weeks, and so
I know.
just for the sake of jinxing, I'm gonna go Kennesaw State.
Okay, let's do that.
Carter
No,
can.
I'm
Carter.
going
I was about to
Sam
know.
Houston.
Carter's
yeah,
gone.
you
He's
have
gone either
to.
way. I've picked him 2 weeks,
have
and you
to.
picked him last week. So
we'll
I'm
go
going
Kennesaw
jinx.
State. Yeah,
I'm going
we're
jinx.
going reverse psychology here.
Yes, I'm going Sam Houston. Picked against them the last 2 weeks. I've been in their boat before. I know they're going to get it done this week.
Let's
go.
do it. Let's go. All right, next game on the docket here. Houston playing at Baylor this Saturday at 2:30 p.m. You can watch it on Big 12 Network or ESPN Plus. Baylor coming in as 4-point favorites. The over/under is 58.
Okay.
Folks, what do we feel about
This game is sick.
This game is
This
disgusting.
game is Sicko's committee level.
This game is disgusting. If
If
you
I
were
don't
at
see
this
Sicko's
game, if
committee
you were a Baylor
tweeting.
fan, no. If you're a Houston fan at this game, you're disgusting. If you're a Baylor fan, it's on campus. It's fine.
Yeah.
If you're a Houston fan at this game, you're disgusting. Look, I have no idea who I pick in this game. Genuinely, my mind wants to say Baylor, but wouldn't it be very fitting if Houston just wins by like 2 touchdowns?
I kind of think Houston has a chance to
Houston.
smoke them.
Right. I was
I was about to say that. I
like,
think I would go Houston in this.
this feels like, as bad as the vibes do feel, there's always like that but caveat with Houston, where it's like, but none of the other new Big 12 schools are doing well, right? So it's like there feels like a caveat where it's like, sure, yes, Dana Holger's the experiment's not going well, but is this just like transition pains and like, just having to play this type of schedule week in, week out, things like that. Baylor just feels like just bad. Like, it just feels like bad vibes. There's no caveat to it. You can't be like, well, they don't have blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, this is a title team a couple years ago.
Well, and here's the thing, too. I think you can point to multiple games on Houston's schedule this year where you can say, hey, they played really well. Donovan Smith looked really good.
Sure.
Can you say that about a single opponent that Baylor has played this year? Like, yeah, they pulled out that crazy win against UCF, but
Long
can you
Island
say... No, that's
No,
my point.
we're not saying
You
that
just
against Long
proved
Island.
my
Yeah.
point. So,
Yeah, no.
right, you can't say that about Baylor, but you can absolutely say that about Houston.
Yeah.
Y'all kind of answered my question, but I was going to ask, like, who's in a worse spot with a loss? Like,
It's Baylor.
I think it
Yes,
might be Baylor.
absolutely.
Because I was thinking about it. Because let me play devil's advocate on
Go for it.
why the loss might be worse for Houston.
Go for it.
Dana Holgerson, quote, "I'm glad to get to November. I'm excited about moving on to Baylor." He basically said he knew the month of October would be how it happened. Go Cougs also put out a story. Dana on his radio show said,
Yes.
the ship on the 2024 recruiting class in high school has basically sailed. Houston is 96th nationally and dead last among Power 5 programs in 2024.
Baylor is? Baylor?
Houston.
Oh,
This is Houston.
Houston.
The Go
I'm sorry,
Cougs
I
guys. Yeah,
misheard
this is
you.
on the radio show. So go follow the Go Cougs guys and listen to talking about them Cougs on Republican Football. Yeah, that was from Brad Towns, who we had on the show.
The Eternal Optimist Brown Towns.
Eternal Optimist Brad Towns put out an article basically is like the ship sailed, because if you hear listen to Dana, he's basically saying the ship sailed. Like yeah, I will say that is a good point. I will say the only argument for me is that I don't see a lot of room for optimism in terms of I'm trying to figure out a way to phrase this, because yes, you could make an argument that both coaches are on the hot seat. I think they both are. I think you can make the argument that Houston probably. I don't know how I can prove this exactly, but I feel there's a lighter climb to the end of the tunnel for Houston.
There's a lighter climb to the end of the tunnel, and this is their first year in the Big 12. Baylor's 2-year deformation is kind of shocking.
Like it feels like an implosion.
Mm-hmm.
So
they don't get excited about anything.
No.
If you watch their sidelines and they have a 30-yard touchdown pass, the guys are just eyes glazed over.
I mean, they feel on edge.
Yeah.
Like it feels on. Everybody's like, it feels like a stadium that's on edge. Like it just feels like, oh geez, what's happening? Like if the opponent scores, like the wind just gets sucked out of the building. You're just like, oh, what happened now?
Yeah.
So
there's zero energy going on with Baylor right now.
I think I'm going to Houston.
I'm going to Houston too.
I'm going Houston as well.
I know on the recap show I just made the argument that Houston could be 0-5 if not for Hail Mary and West Virginia, and I'm all of a sudden going
but
for them.
But they've been in games.
To your
Baylor
point, they
has
have been in
games.
Right?
Really.
No, 100%. That's the argument there.
Well, and here's something too. Baylor's played 5 conference opponents this year. They've only beaten 2, and 2 of them are brand new to the Big 12.
Yeah.
They have not beaten a team that's been a part of the Big 12. So I don't know if if that falls in Baylor's favor, but again, I'm still going Houston.
Yeah, no, it's fair.
All right, next game on the docket for it this week. It's the Fightin' Schmales. Texas State hosting Georgia Southern in an interesting matchup. Saturday at 4 p.m. You can watch it on ESPN Plus. Georgia Southern coming in as 2-point favorites. The over-under is 70.5.
Over.
Jesus.
Over.
You're going to hammer that over? Yeah, no, both these defenses are not very good. But both these offenses are also very good.
It's a UTSA game.
Yeah.
Good
I'm going to
offenses,
say,
bad
yeah.
defenses.
I'm going to go. This is going to sound pessimistic, but I think Georgia Southern is just a bad matchup. And so I'm going to go Georgia Southern because, one, sneakily, one of the best coaches in G5 in Clay Helton. like the fact that he took that job after the USC job is still shocking to me. But they just wrecked a really good Georgia State team last week, 44-27 in the big rivalry game. Their only loss in conference is to James Madison, of course, who looks like next level. They've beaten Coastal already. They beat them by 10. And they kind of have a really good balanced attack going on right now. I believe Davis Brin. Remember Davis Brin? He's their quarterback from Tulsa, I believe.
Yeah, G.J. Kinney was running scout team.
That's right. Yes.
As Davis Brin, former
Yes.
G.J. Kinney, former Tulsa QB.
There you go.
He said that Davis Brin was so good, G.J. Kinney had to hop in and give him a realistic look.
That's awesome.
Was his quote in the press conference.
Yeah, I mean, Davis Brin, he was a starting quarterback for Tulsa, like a really good quarterback. I don't know how they got him at Georgia. Fantastic get from them, from Clay Helton and them. And then they also have a running back who's approaching 600 yards in Jalen White, who's averaging 6 yards a carry. So I think it's a bad matchup overall. And I think out of the offenses that have shown more black marks, I think it's been Texas State recently.
Yeah, I brought a few stats to the table. Texas State is 117th in the nation in passing defense, and like we talked about, Georgia Southern's got that gunslinger with Davis Brin, 17 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. That's a 2005 NFL quarterback stat line right there.
That's a Kerry Collins stat line for the Giants.
8th in the nation in passing offense right now.
Yeah.
The last 3 games, TJ Finley's thrown 4 interceptions, and Georgia Southern is 9th in the nation in turnovers gained.
Yeah.
So this Georgia Southern defense, while not very good, is very opportunistic. And
100%.
TJ Finley's kind of been throwing the ball around the yard a little bit.
Yes, he has. I'm going to say I don't think we're in Malik Hornsby territory, but I will say I wouldn't be surprised if we see more packages for him this year.
Can we get some more packages with Malik Hornsby?
I wouldn't mind that. I know that's a rhythm thing as far as like getting, because their offense is a lot about rhythm and staying on script and things like that. But I would like to see I think we only saw Hornsby like once or twice last game. I would like to see a little bit more running packages like that for him. So
it just feels like Malik Hornsby right now is like the Jaguar you're too scared to take out.
Yes,
you keep it in the garage and
Yeah.
keep like polishing it off. Yeah. My baby.
One day.
On it.
One day.
Today's the day.
Today's the day.
That's awesome. All right, let's keep it rolling with SMU playing at Rice this Saturday at 6:30 p.m. You can watch it on ESPNU. SMU coming in as 12-point favorites. The over/under 59.5.
Intriguing.
This is very tasty.
All right, so yes, I'm taking SMU. Right, I think that goes without saying. But this is the first time since Oklahoma, probably, when they face an offense that can get after them. It's been obviously we'll give them the TCU game we'll give TCU as well, but I don't know. I think they were just overmatched in that game. As far as like conference opponents, it's been Charlotte, ECU, Temple, Tulsa. Right, none of those teams are putting up anything. They gave up 16, 10, 0, and 10 in those games. Right,
Yeah.
So I believe Max Olson also put out his updated stop rate, and I believe they're like 8th in the country now in stop rate.
It was fifth.
Fifth. Jeez, even better. So 5th in the country defensive stop rate. So we know what Rice is going to do, and they're going to try to throw the ball around. I'm very curious how this secondary holds up.
Yeah, I'm very curious as well, too, because JT Daniels, he did look a little shaky versus Tulane at the start.
Yep.
And they can't afford that to happen again. But once JT Daniels turned it on, it was pretty nice.
Yeah.
And I just feel like SMU's got too many playmakers in the secondary for Rice. I mean, Rice is really Luke McCaffrey and like that's about like I don't know
It's
who
not
else
very
is really out
decorative.
there.
Yeah, Dean Connors, their next leading receiver at running back, with 300 less yards than Luke McCaffrey.
Yeah, it just feels like SMU's got the studs in the secondary to kind of like lock it down to where, and look, the defensive line too is pretty much full of physical specimens that were at Power 5 programs before they transferred to SMU. It's like a team full of transfers, which we've talked about before.
Right.
Something to watch though is Josh Percy hasn't been practicing. Bloom said he's walking around fine. This is Rice's defensive end, outside linebacker hybrid. Bloom's being very vague in his press conference about if he's going to play or if he's not going to play, which when he's being so vague, it kind of makes me feel like he's not going to play. He said he's walking around. It's a lower body injury. So that's a huge loss for Rice if he can't play.
Yeah. Definitely. Notice that we're not talking about SMU's offense versus Rice's defense, because that's just going to turn out the way it is.
That's good. I was going to say there's.
It's going to be a hold on for your dear life, Rice.
The one thing I will say about SMU's offense though is like I feel like the tight end RJ Maryland's kind of turning into the number one option.
Oh, he definitely is the number one this year. He's definitely become the number one option this year,
which is good. They needed that number one option.
Yes, and he's like that hybrid, right? He's not a big tight end, but he's a receiving tight end. He's not. It's kind of like that tweener body where he's not an inline blocker, but he's not slender enough to be a wide receiver, but he's athletic enough to like beat linebackers and like even challenge some safeties.
Matchup nightmare.
Yeah, so like I'm curious to see about his pro potential too, because I really do think that type of tight end is interesting. But he's definitely emerged after kind of being a sleeper for them as a freshman. So yeah, I think he's at 315 yards receiving, 5 touchdowns this year. So yeah, I'm very curious to see his development for the next last couple games.
And he said on Sunday's show, you need Preston Stone to throw a 350-yard game before he gets deemed P. Shiesty. Are we on P. Shiesty watch on this game? Do we think he's got 350 in him?
I think so.
I think we're on P. Shiesty watch. This
It's not good.
Keep an eye out. Keep an eye out for it.
P. Shiesty watch. Stay tuned.
Jesus. Cut y'all's mics off. All right, let's round it out with UTEP hosting Western Kentucky this Saturday at 8 p.m. You can watch it on ESPN Plus. Western Kentucky coming in as 13-point favorites. The over/under is 54.5.
Under. Actually, wait, isn't Western Kentucky like an insane offense?
They're really good this year again.
Yeah. Okay, over.
I mean, they're not as good as they were under
Bailey Zappi
and Kitley, but Austin Reed's been really good for them. So I don't know how many interceptions he had this year. Yeah, 20 and 5. So 20 touchdowns, 5 picks this year.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. I don't know if that's down or on pace of last year.
He was like the nation's leading passer last year.
Yeah, he's definitely not on pace for that. He has about half the touchdowns he had last year. But regardless, yeah, I don't say UTEP being able to keep up with that.
Do we know Gavin Hardison's status? Yeah,
I haven't heard
anything.
anything.
no idea.
I mean, I can look really
So
quickly,
it's
but I have
most
not.
likely going to be Kay McConnell.
Yes,
Okay.
I would presume so.
This is something I've noticed all year.
Yeah.
Is just coaches just like not updating what the injuries are. For
I
any of their
think
players.
last status update, which you can probably take as no, is week to week.
Okay.
with week to week for a month.
Right. So
That's
yeah.
the Sark like Quinn Ewers is week to week for the next 4 games.
Right.
It's
So yeah. Yeah.
Which this is something to watch too for like as college football betting gets like more mainstream and like I really want to hammer some bets down on UTEP versus Western Kentucky. It's like I need to know if Gavin Hardison's playing, you know, and this is something that's we're in a collision course of like the gambling sharks laying down on Mike Bloomgren. You have to tell us what's happening with Josh Percy. You can't say it's a lower body injury. He's walking around and he might play or might not play.
I'm taking the under here. You got to tell me if he's going.
Exactly.
Austin Reed has had, let's see, 297, 250, 365. Those are his last 4 games throwing the ball. So
Yeah, Western Kentucky's going to win this game.
Yeah,
I mean,
100%. Yeah.
I tried to make a joke about like I need to know if Gavin Hardison's playing. It doesn't matter.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't matter.
UTEP's done.
Yeah,
It's
and
Jover.
they need to give the ball to Deion Hankins. Just if you
Yeah.
lose, have him lose like 70 carries.
Yeah.
It's like
He's having like a great that's what I hate.
Don't
He's on
waste his great
679 for the year, 5.5 yards a carry, and Torrance Burgess has 529 on like 5 yards a carry. And it's like finally the running game is like good, and then everything else just falls to pieces around them.
It's like Dana Dimmel when he like his readers drop into his eyes. He looks at his play sheet. It's just like handball off.
Deion Hankins in big letters.
That's it.
All right, that's all we got. We got a lot of intrastate matchups this week.
Intriguing week.
So yeah, no, it's gonna be kind of I don't want to say a blood weekend, but it's kind of like a gauntlet weekend, I'll say, because like no matter what, there's gonna be like some good and bad vibes coming out.
We're gonna have some answers
Yes.
after this week.
Well, definitely, that's a good way to put it. We're gonna have some answers. So with that being said, of course, stay tuned for the Sunday recap episode. Be sure to check out Mike Craven's stuff on TexasFootball.com. Go check out Carter's story right now on Sonny Dykes returning to Lubbock and kind of his emotional tie / why he's not paying attention to his homecoming until the game's over. But it's a really good story. Go check that out right now. Corey Hogue will be putting out some stuff. He put out new conference races for the non-FBS and conference playoff, conference championship race, I should say, as well. I will also potentially have something on UTSA and UNT, the rivalry going up hopefully tomorrow, and in Craven's story on Torrey and York as well, hopefully tomorrow. So please stay tuned, TexasFootball.com. Please subscribe to all the shows on the Republic of Football podcast feed. Listen to everybody. Promo code DCTF pointing right there just above my head for 15% off your first-time purchase at Home Field Apparel. Go Rutgers, beat Ohio State, and Jimbo Fisher, please give us a call. Mallory, how dare you? Go Rutgers.